Welcome to the Social Business Hangout, featuring Robert Levine, your social business mentor. The Social Business Hangout podcast series is available on iTunes. This podcast was recorded in Brantford, Ontario. Welcome back. I'm Robert Levine, and I'm with Sid Bolton, and we're at the Personal Computer Museum right here in Brantford, Ontario, and we're going to continue our tour. So we've kind of looked at the pets and the Commodores and the Ataris. We're kind of going to get more into the PC world.
Sounds good.
With a bit of a surprise at the end.
Yeah, exactly. This one's pretty interesting, actually. This is the Hot Wheels computer. This is one of the most popular machines we have, especially with kids. Very cool. There was actually a Barbie one as well, made by a Canadian company called Patriot Computers, based out of Mississauga. Now, there's a good side of the story and there's a bad side of the story. The good side is it's a very cool looking machine. Lots of kids loved it, very happy with it and so on. It was a good price point. Came with a lot of neat stuff. The downside, there was some technical flaws with the machine, and ultimately that ended up causing Patriot to go out of business. The further downside of that is they took a lot of orders they never delivered on.
Gotcha.
So they took a lot of people's money, they were very upset, and of course they turned to Mattel for compensation, whereas Mattel actually kind of got screwed in the deal as well because they never got paid a lot of their licensing fees, or even any of their licensing fees by some accounts. So Mattel ended up offering people a $100 gift certificate to their store, which they really didn't have to do, but they also were trying to protect their name. It was their brand that was at risk. But still, it's interesting. I saw somebody who linked to our website listing recently out in Sacramento trying to get the initial retail price of $800 for his machine. So to say it's one computer that's retained its value is probably very accurate. So if you have one of these, or if you have a Barbie computer, we do have a Barbie one. The Barbie one's not working, and some of the decals are missing. So if we had a Rick's restoration around here, we'd probably send it over to Rick to get fixed up. But we don't, so at some point in time, we'll probably do the restoration ourselves.
And you bring up a good point for those of you that didn't catch the first half. All of these actually do run, and
yes.
So if they're on display, they're usable.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, the machines that are down on our bottom floor, there's a few in the upper floor, but the bottom floor are completely interactive. Of course, except for the ones that are up top, but they're just sort of there for show. But the rest of them you can play around with. So next up we have, this is a Sun Ultra 10 Creator machine. This is actually, the Sun systems, probably no one will remember having them in their home because these were actually professional level machines that were traditionally used for graphics and animation. So companies like Pixar, in fact, the very first Toy Story was made on a computer very similar to this. Actually, a lot of them, they were put in render farms. But the actual computers themselves, and that's part of the reason why this monitor is so big, because it had to give a nice large display. So even though Steve Jobs created the next machines, the company that he went sort of into rescue, Pixar, was actually using these machines even before he walked in the door. So these are pretty cool. We have them running here just to sort of give people an idea of what different operating systems look like. The machine's running here right now. It is a candidate that's up for being replaced with something else new and interesting. So it may or may not be here if you come and visit. So if you want to see it, come visit us soon.
Now, I do know as well during the 1999-2000 era, Sun was massive because during the boom of the internet, during the .com and whatnot, the lineup for Sun devices were just massive.
Yes, and of course, Sun has left us Java and JavaScript, which everyone has in their browser, and actually a lot of what we do on the web today we owe to Sun. So still, certainly, they have a great contribution to the internet world, and they don't make hardware anymore.
The internet was built mostly on a lot of these.
A lot of these machines, yeah, absolutely, that's true. That's absolutely true. And next up, we have the granddaddy of all the PCs that are out there today. So if you have a PC-compatible computer, or just what you would consider I would say any non-Mac computer, it probably has its origins in this machine right here.
So this is C-based programming on one of these.
Oh, scary. This is an IBM PC 5150, so that's the formal model name. This particular one is decked out with an original color monitor. It's in amazing, immaculate physical shape. As many have discovered, the keyboard is
solid.
4 times heavier than the average keyboard that you would find on a computer today. It's very solid, has the nice clicky feel to it. A lot of people like it. And we, of course, have a text-based game running on it. Microsoft Adventure. No, we have Microsoft Adventure. We have the original Adventure, which is actually based on the very, Colossal Cave Adventure, which was really the first game of its type on a mainframe computer back in the 60s. So this really, really has an old origin to it, and it's kind of fun to sit down and actually do a text adventure.
So this is actually running the first ever DOS.
Yeah, I think actually it might. Well, it's actually, this is a booter disk, so it's not even using DOS.
Gotcha. So
it's going directly to. But I think we have DOS 2 running on it most of the time, because DOS 1 really doesn't do anything. So it's very, very minimal. So DOS 2 at least had something. This is the PC Jr. This is actually IBM's first big failure. It was supposed to be a really low-cost computer. In the end, people wanted the functionality of the business machine. They ended up buying more of these than these. Of course, another bad design choice is it has what's called the chiclet keyboard. Why? Because, well, the keys look like they're chiclet gum. And that was, although it did have one interesting benefit, it was wireless.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It was actually line-of-sight wireless, so you had to have the keyboard visible to the sensor here.
So we're talking infrared?
Infrared, yeah, and that was one of the first computers that had that, so that was interesting. And of course, because it was so minimal, you had to add things onto the side. If you want to put another disk drive, it went on the bottom. So in the end, you ended up building up this thing that looked as big, if not bigger, than the original IBM PC. So really, what was the point? Right. And that's why it was canned. One of the more interesting things about it is it was at the very beginning where IBM was using Charlie Chaplin as their mascot. And if you look way up there, you'll actually see an IBM PC Jr. clock with Charlie Chaplin right in there. So that's an example of them using it.
And going back to the 5150, pretty much every single business had one of those, mostly on the accounting side.
Yeah, and if not one of those, then of course one of the derivatives and clones and knockoffs that followed. I mean, one of the great things that IBM did, and one of the downsides to what they did, was they used off the shelf parts to make the machine. So there was nothing proprietary about it, which made it affordable for them to build, but it also made it easier and legal for other people to copy it. Yeah. So,
and that's the one thing that Apple never really ran into. They didn't have the same clone issues that the PC brands had.
No, and at one point they actually had licensed clones, and then when Steve Jobs came back, he got rid of them. So.
Yeah.
But
the PS1, obviously.
Yeah, this is another IBM model. This one for us is particularly interesting because it has actually a 3.5-inch drive, a 5.25 drive. It runs DOS, so we can actually use it to convert disks back and forth. So if anyone has an old 5.25, they want to put it on something modern, we can take it from 5.25 to 3.5, 3.5 to USB, USB to U. So it has a little bit of a journey to go in, but we can certainly get your data back. Yeah, it also has a CD-ROM in it. So
I noticed that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting for this time period. So it can run some of the older DOS games. There were a few DOS games that required CD. And finally, the other interesting thing about this particular machine, it's actually running Windows 2.1. Most people that have had exposure to Windows in the early days started at 3.1. That was the most popular version. That's really when Windows took off. But there was a Windows 1 and there was a Windows 2. And so we actually have Windows 2.1 running. So you can come and see how bad early versions of Windows really were.
Now, I see the PS1, but I don't see a PS2.
We had a PS2 out over here previously. It's one of the machines that's just changed in the rotation.
Because one of the things with the PS2, if I remember correctly, the operating system was actually built right into the device, or this is going back a few years.
Well, there's various models of the PS2. One of them had sort of a screen that was above it with the hard drive and everything inside of it. So the hard drive was just built in, so it kind of had that appearance like everything was there. But really, the only one that really built it into hardware separately were the Tandies. Like some of the Tandies had desk mate actually built into ROMs.
Gotcha.
So that's a little different. And some of the portable devices had DOS built in as well. This is an Olivetti. This is actually just an example. This is a PC clone. This is an example of tons of computers that were cloned. And lots of company names that you might recognize from business. Olivetti made all kinds of other things and other business devices, but of course they had to have their own PC compatible, so that's just an example of one.
And this one, the keyboard actually clipped into the actual casing of the
exactly. This one's a portable, so this would flip up, go in here, and then you could actually lug this thing with you. Zenith also. Zenith was actually doing fairly well in computers because it was actually doing monitors for example, Apple computers. So it was common for them to have that. And but they also made PC compatible machines. So this particular one, you can see the fairly massive hard drive in here. Probably was only about 20 or 40 megabytes, not gigabytes, megs. And had a 5 1/4 built in, so not too bad. Had a little bit more aesthetic appeal.
But
than
now
just
you're starting to see
box.
what most people consider to be PCs. By the time the average household started getting into the PC market, it pretty much started looking like that. Or, well, not really the PS1, but that type of desktop versus tower case.
Versus the tower, yeah, and that was, you know, the popular design for a long time. Also had the added advantage of having the screen on top, which gave it a better, when you were sitting down and having your hands down for typing. This is actually much more ideal than the way we have it with the towers today. So, but anyway, that's what it was for the time. Macintosh Classic, of course, if you want to come a little closer, we can look a little closer at this one, because this one, a lot of people will remember this. This is the classic 9-inch black and white design. This is the classic, so this wasn't the first one that came out. This one actually has a hard drive built into it. The very first Macintosh models were strictly floppies, nothing else, no any kind of hard storage or anything like that. This particular one also has an extra disk drive hooked into it. They're pretty interesting. Some people like to go back and try the black and white machines and see what they look like. So that's why we have that one out. It's also, we've had these machines on and off out here in the museum. So when you come in, it may be here, it may not be here. We're always changing what we have on display. We only have a limited amount of display space, and we want to have people, especially people that come here fairly often, we want them to experience different computers when they come and not just the same ones.
So come often is what we're basically saying.
Come often, every couple of months we try to at least give you at least one new computer. We're going to continue back. We sort of stopped last time in part A here. This is the Commodore 128D. Just want to quickly point out, this is often considered the best 8-bit computer ever made. Couple of reasons why. It's actually 3 computers in one. It's a Commodore 64, it's a Commodore 128, and it's also a CP/M machine, so it can actually run, you know, a big slew of business programs. It also had the capability of having a 3.5-inch disk drive hooked up to it, which for an 8-bit machine is very cool. Of course, the Commodore 64 could do that as well, but still. This is the 128D that has the 5 1/4 drive built in. This is a very sought-after model. It's one of the most common ones when we're selling our surplus computers. I get asked about, do you have any Commodore 128Ds?
Very much Amiga looking.
For sale. Absolutely. It looks a lot like the Amiga 1000 because they came out at the same time. So, believe it or not, and that's part of the reason why this didn't sell, because by the time the Amiga came out, this was at the end of its life, and it really didn't have anywhere to go. But it's still a great machine. We love it. People play on it, and they like it. And of course, here we have the Commodore 64.
I still own mine, by the way.
Well, it's the most popular computer ever made for a single model. Various estimates put it at anywhere between 22 million and 30 million units sold. That's for one single model. Remember that, you know, of course, with other computers, you know, they don't sell as many because they change the models every couple of weeks, it seems. So, you know, this technology lasted and was sold for a good solid 10 years.
As is, like no,
as it was without any changes.
Not even
to the
firmware upgrades.
Nope, just the only thing that was done was just revisions to reduce the cost of manufacturing it and selling it. Otherwise, the software, the bugs were all still there. They weren't changed. Very, very few changes done between models that were sold. So, pretty amazing. It's still the computer that people come out here and recognize the most and seem to play around the most on. So, it will always be out here for people to play on just because of its popularity. And as we move into more video games and showcasing my video game collection, we will have things like this Vectrex, for example. This is a gaming console that uses a vector display rather than a CRT display to do its gaming on. It's pretty cool.
So does that mean that it's able to scale to a larger screen as a result?
Yes and no. It basically, the concept is instead of drawing top to bottom, which is what every CRT does, every single frame is drawn top to bottom twice to give you one full frame. This actually just draws the gun inside. It's only black and white. Just draws exactly what it needs to make the display.
Oh, so it's not actually drawing the full screen. It's
no, just drawing the lines that are necessary. And as such, so for example, Asteroids is an example of an early vector screen game. And this one has games like that. It has Star Castle, which Star Castle was one of my favorite arcade games. It was simulated color by putting actually color overlays on top of the screen.
Yeah.
And this system actually came with overlays as well that would fit inside here to cover up the screen, to give you that color effect without actually having color. And finally here we have the IMSAI 8080. This is our oldest computer.
And I'm going to shift over here so we can get a nice shot of that.
Yeah, it's an absolutely interesting looking machine. It's from 1976. This is actually came out around the same time as the Altair did. The Altair is sort of considered one of the first personal computers, as is this. The Altair is the machine that Bill Gates first created BASIC on, but the IMSAI is very, very similar in a lot of ways. It's mostly air inside. The machine is actually set up to have expansion cards put in. It does not come with a keyboard. It does not come with a screen. So you actually have to use these flip switches in order to do anything. Can you imagine that? And your output would be in the form of little lights. So you could do things like add two numbers together in binary and get the result on the display, until you started adding some expansion cards, and there were things like 8-inch disk drives available for it. And the other sort of interesting trivia about this particular machine is that it was used in the film War Games with Matthew Broderick and Ali Sheedy. Although it was used as a prop, it wasn't actually the machine that he was using. But in the movie, you will clearly see the IMSAI computer in the movie, and it's basically saying that this is the computer system that he had. So definitely a cool computer to come and look at, if just for the fact that you can say, hey, I've actually touched a computer that doesn't even have a, forget the mouse, it doesn't even have a screen or a keyboard. So it's pretty cool.
So, for all of those that like right now we're filming this on a smartphone, which, when you look at all of this technology, that smartphone has more than all of this probably combined.
Yes.
It all started with this type of someone just hacking something together and saying truly binary, ons and offs.
And it was sold in two ways, either assembled or do it yourself.
And that was kind of a lot of the things people forget about, is even though IBM was releasing PCs and stuff like that, even prior to that, you had a lot of home enthusiasts building these things and
Well, that's how Apple got started. Apple really was built up because of the Homebrew Computer Club in California that encouraged Jobs and Wozniak to actually bring out their machine, because the original Apple didn't even have a case. People that bought it put it in their own wooden case, and that's how
I do remember
went.
a lot of people had their wooden cases for these things, because it was mostly, as you say, just a way to keep all of the pieces together. And carry
it's
around.
much different than what we have today.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Take care.
Welcome to the Social Business Hangout, featuring Robert Levine, your social business mentor. The Social Business Hangout podcast series is available on iTunes. This podcast was recorded in Brantford, Ontario. Welcome, everybody. This is the Social Business Hangout. My name is Robert Levine, and you can reach me at socialbusinessmentor.com.